Good morning, and thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. The US markets had a nothing kind of a session, if you will, a bit lower for the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq. Disparate moves, of course. The Nasdaq still a lot more robust than the Dow and the S&P. But the other cues, so the yields have marched back again. We were talking about how the yields came off, and the two-year yields in particular, the last few days. But the 10-year is back to 4.26, so that's to be kept in mind. The dollar index is at nearly 105. So there is a global currency weakness. If you look at the futures market, S&P 500 futures are little changed after a losing session. Asian markets have fallen, largely fallen amidst the weak US handover. Country Garden has avoided a default with the last minute interest payment. The rupee, as I said, is 83.09, which is the weakest close since August 21. But amidst all of this, arguably one of the most important points is that oil prices have settled now at 10-month highs as Saudi and Russia have extended supply cuts. This is the biggest joker in the pack, and I think it's important to get an expert perspective on this. Peter Maguire Johnson, all the way from Sydney, to talk about his thoughts on the same. Peter, great having you. Good afternoon to you. What do you make of these extended cuts well into December? What does it mean for crude prices?
Well, good morning, Niraj. I'll tell you what it means is I think this upward trend, what we've experienced over the last week and a half has just been very, very much game on. You're up probably the best part of 7.5% to 8%. It was bid up strongly going back about 6 or 8 hours ago, and it's given back a little bit of that hot steam, but you've still got Brent sitting at $90.20. You've got WTI just shy of $87. And as you mentioned, 10-month high for crude, Saudi and Russia rolling that over to December. And this doesn't bode well for consumers out there. And I think that you'll probably see considerably higher prices over the next month or two.
By considerably higher prices, one, what are the levels that you're looking at? And is this likely to be the game plan till December, you reckon, in terms of the price action?
I think you're going to be bid up over the next couple of months and leading into December. You've got to also look at seasonality demand, any issues as far as hurricane to impact the US side of things as far as production. And as far as a price point, well, your best part of $91, you've got to be saying that probably 100 is very achievable. I don't know whether it's going to take out that in September, but many analysts are now talking. That's the hum that I'm hearing. Many are saying that it's very achievable for 100 sometime this month.
Wow, Peter. One quick question: the last time around that we had high prices, the U.S. strategic reserves were high. I was reading a note yesterday which said that it's no longer at those levels. Therefore, would you believe that oil price movement here on would largely be a factor of what OPEC Plus does, in that if it moves higher and if they decide to do away with the production cuts, then there is a bit lower possibility, but it effectively hinges on decisions that OPEC Plus would take?
I think it does. I think the big elephants in the room, Niraj, are quite simply Saudi and Russia. So you've got to be conscious that they're the big players and they're extending these cuts to December. The other thing that is very, and I think that's a very good point you raised as far as the SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserves. You've got to do the research as far as traders are concerned and retail traders to understand the severity of this. Biden has really added this to supply over the last probably 12 months or more, maybe even 18 months, and prices have really been held down. If there is a case that you've got geopolitical concerns and the states have got to fill those back up, then that will be at very, very high prices. And that won't go well from a price point perspective. And these are also what traders are mindful of. So, I'm not saying we're entering a perfect storm, but it seems to be very rocky roads ahead for the crude market as far as price.
Well, as far as Indian markets go, 100 is nearly a perfect storm relative to what we've seen in the last few months, Peter. So yes. Take on board your point. One last question. Anything else? Any moving parts other than this that you're watching out for, Peter?
Well, very much across, the inflation curve. I mean, if this starts to edge up, that's a real handbrake as far as inflation. It's going to kick off again, as we know. You need energy prices at $60 or $70 a barrel or cheaper to really contain inflation. And the central banks are sitting there with sitting on their hands at the moment. And if you start to see energy prices really, ratchet up and stay at these sort of levels, then that's going to greatly impact inflation. And we don't want to see continual rate rises, but that might be the only way forward for them to meet their targets as far as, the Fed with 2% handle.
Yeah, well, Peter, thank you for putting that into perspective. Really appreciate your time and have a great afternoon.
God bless you, Niraj. See you soon. Thank you.
And you, Peter, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out. Well, that's Peter Maguire with his views on oil. And he believes that 100 is not out of the window. He's hearing people murmuring that on the oil analyst side. Well, that could be a spanner in the wheel. Oil prices much higher and rupee lower because of the dollar index, of course, inching higher. That is a perfect storm of sorts. So let's wait and watch what happens there. I mean, equities are higher for 3 consecutive sessions, but oil and rupee may play spoil sport, I fear. Rotation is now leading to laggard sectors like media and logistics starting to pick up in trade. But I think today's trade is all about oil upstream companies, which are likely to see some momentum in session. Now, viewers, here's the deal. There are various indicators, and let's move out of this plate. My colleague Chinmay is going to put out a story today or tomorrow which speaks about indicators which might lead to indicators which point towards the possibility of mid caps and small caps being overextended. We've already heard Bank of America, Kotak AMC, and some of the others speak about this. With crude prices inching higher, rupee looking slightly skittish, or dollar looking very strong, and there being inflationary pressures. I'm not sounding alarm bells as yet, but it might not be a bad idea to take some money off the table in trading positions, especially in the SMIDs in which you don't have research properly done, but you've bought it because somebody's given you a tip. Please be mindful. I mean, I'm not telling you that this is a great time to get off mid cap and small cap funds. That is, you invest into funds with a long-term perspective. But if you bought stocks without doing proper research because somebody very smart has told you so, uh, and if you're making money, it might not be a bad idea to take some money off the table. Everybody that I speak to who's spent decades in the market seems to be suggesting that. Please be mindful of this. It may well happen that for the next 1 month, the markets may be higher than where we are right now. But it never hurt to take some profits off the table. So just that advice that comes in from a bunch of very experienced investors that I thought I should bring to you, especially in light of the fact that we are looking at a macro concern with crude and currency doing what they are. There's an IPO opening today as well, Jupiter Lifeline Hospitals. It's going to raise about 869 crores via fresh issue and an offer for sale. The fresh issue is of 70 lakh shares, price band 695 to 735. From what I read, there is already a large grey market premium there, but that notwithstanding, just the fact that they've managed to raise 260 crores from anchor investors, the kind of sector that it is in, which is healthcare and hospitals, is actually going through a fairly strong patch as well in terms of earnings at various companies, and therefore not a bad sector to be in. I would suspect that it could see good subscription during the course of the next 2 days. We'll try and get you what brokerages are saying as well. Most brokerages don't nowadays give a subscribe rating. A few do. So we'll try and get some of those in the trade setup tomorrow and day after. But you can watch the interview that the management would have done with my colleague Sajid Mangat on IPO Adda. So that is something that might give you a clue or two about the kind of growth rates that the company is expecting. Ankit Thakkar is the CEO of the company and is speaking to my colleague Sajid on the way ahead. So do watch out for that. Now, stocks to watch in the session today. It's not a very long laundry list, so bear with me, but a few stocks which could be in focus. Geo Financial Services certainly could be in focus. The NSE exclusion will play a part today. Remember, the stock is back to about 250 odd levels, and NSE has announced the exclusion of the stock from various indices, including Nifty 50. Can expect to see some index fund sell flows in the latter half of trade. Most people believe that it could be VWAP-based selling that could come in the last half an hour. Various estimates peg the numbers between $250 to $300 million or slightly above that as well. So between over 8 crore to 10 and a half, or between 8 crore and 11 crore shares that could come in for selling. Again, these are estimates, no note that I've got in from an official brokerage, but certainly there could be some selling here, so be mindful of that. Might not be a good idea if you, therefore, simply put, to go out and buy the share today, if you, even if you find value, because there could be some selling, and therefore a prudent time to buy into Geo Financial Services if you believe in the business model could be tomorrow. So just bear that in mind. Vedanta, Zambian government has agreed to return ownership of Konkola copper mines to Vedanta Resources. Konkola copper mines assets have reserves of 16 billion tons of copper. This positive connotation at a group level, and therefore Vedanta India could also benefit out of it. So watch out for this one. NBCC has signed an MOU with Kerala State Housing Board for development of 17.9 acres of a land parcel of the board in Kochi. The project value is to the tune of 2,000 crores. So watch out for this one. Could have an interesting move in the session. So that's the other one to watch out for. Power grid, even for a company as large as Power Grid, a 20 gigs project is large. They've been declared a successful bidder under a transmission system for evacuation of power from an REZ in Rajasthan, and that to the tune of 20 gigawatts. So do watch out for that one. Could be an interesting one in the session today. Then Jindal Steel and Power, officials of the company will meet GIC, and therefore that could be an interesting one to monitor as well. You know, IPOs are finding some really strong things. An ex-colleague and a wealth manager at Omkara currently sent me this note which says that Pacific Fly Studio IPO aimed to raise 66 crore rupees. They got bids worth 10,000 crore rupees. Watch out for that. So that is certainly an interesting one. So that's to be kept in mind. Is there something else? Yep. Motilal Oswal is a note on Voltas. They've reinitiated at a buy rating. The target price is 1,000 rupees per share. So let's wait and watch if Voltas has a bit of a reaction in the session today. So that's to be kept in mind. Have I watched anything else? No, this is largely it. Stocks in ban, Delta Corp is now in a ban, so do watch out for that one. And just one last thing, I mean, aside of oil market or oil upstream companies, which might be in focus today because of crude prices, there has been a currency weakness. IT becomes a sector that people love to take safety in. If indeed we are looking at some bit of tough times ahead, information technology might not be a bad sector to look at as well. We'll try and do a conversation with Dr. C.K. Narayan about what do the charts indicate in such matters, maybe today or tomorrow. So that might help give some cues as well. Thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup. Interesting set of conversations today. Prakash Kumar Jain of CLSA joins in. In fact, that's a question that we'll ask him as well. As a strategist, what is it that they are telling their clients to do? So that's an important conversation at 10. A bunch of corporate conversations. Zensar Tech, Manish Tandon would speak at 10:30. And again, with Rupee doing what it is doing, I think it'll be an interesting conversation with Zensar. DCX Systems, Johnson, HS Raghvendra Rao talks at 12. Deepak Fertilizers, Sailesh Mehta would be joining in at 11:35, so do tune in for that. And India Pesticides has a conversation with us at 1 p.m. Of course, amidst all of this, Jupiter Wagons, okay, the mutual fund show first. Pratik Oswal, Santosh Joseph, and Anand Ladda will be joining in at 4 p.m. So that's a conversation if I want to tune in. And Jupiter Wagons has approved 700 crores QIP. The management will be speaking to us sometime today. Do try and tune in for that as well. Thanks for tuning into the Trade Setup.